Always great on deadline day. The Committee on State and Local Gov will come to order. It is Friday, March 27, 2026, and the time is 10:15. A quorum is present. Just an announcement that we will recess at 12:30 for a 30-minute lunch break. And with that, we will begin with our agenda today. And looks like we have Senate File 4262, Senator Putnam. Oh, sorry, Senator Gustafson will be presenting the bill. Good morning, Senator Gustafson. Whenever you're ready to go, you may begin with your testimony.
Okay, thank you so much.
Or your presentation of the bill. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members. We've all been talking and thinking a lot about our property taxes and how to respond to them, especially in light of the significant increases that we've seen. So with H.R. 1 passing more costs from the federal government onto counties, the problem doesn't look like it's going to be any better for 2027. What this does is it is an investigative way to reduce property taxes on homestead properties and present options for legislation that would provide property tax relief. At least one option must have minimal general fund impact. So no, there is no amendment. Sorry, I was looking for an amendment. There is no amendment. So that is the bill. I do not believe we have, oh, no, we do have two testifiers. No, I'm sorry. No testifiers. I'll just go back to saying this is Senator Putnam's bill, and I am happy to present it, even though I'm sure it's clear he would do a much better job.
Certainly. And members, any questions or comments, or anybody in the audience that would like to testify on the bill? Seeing none, Senator Gustafson moves Senate File 4262 to be recommended to pass and referred to taxes. All in favor say aye. 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 All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 4262 is recommended to taxes. Next up we have, I think Senator Clark is in judiciary right now. Senator Gustafson, as Senator Clark is still in the other committee, would you be ready to present Senate File 3806? And the testifier, we have a listed testifier for this bill, Lillian Tinty? Okay, sorry. All right, Senator Gustafson, to the second bill, Senate File 3806.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is a really fun bill, and I not just because the subject area is pretty cool, right? To name the Toboggan as the official state sled of Minnesota. But the reason why I was motivated to do this was because of the people who stepped forward to ask me to do this. I think it's really important when we give young people the experience of what it's like to pass a bill. They have to write it, they have to lobby for it, they have to get an author to sign on to it, they watch it get drafted and then go through the committee process. And in a time where a lot of people look at politics and government as something that maybe seems too far reach or too impossible or a place that feels confusing and divisive, I'm hopeful, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future, that there are young people who are still interested in it and see it as a vehicle of something that can help people. And if this is the way that they get involved, I think it's wonderful. So if you want to look at your packet, and I really would encourage you to, because there is a very sweet letter in there from somebody who's providing written testimony. But here's just some of the quotes. I think from the St. Paul Toboggan Club, I think tobogganing is special because everyone can do it together, even if you are little or old. It makes winter fun instead of just cold. And by passing this, we would be honoring the toboggan's history and celebrating Minnesota's outdoor winter culture. By investing in youth-led initiatives, this bill creates a more active and connected community. There's more that I'm sure we'll hear from our testifiers on the toboggan history and the significance of this in Minnesota. But as somebody who married into a Swedish name, Gustafson, I think this is also a really fun way to kind of celebrate winter and you know, all of the fun that you can have in a Minnesota winter. So thank you.
All right, thank you to the testifier. Please state your full name for the record, and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lillian Tinty, and I am a high school student from St. Paul. And today I speak on behalf of the St. Paul Toboggan Club and the Minnesota Toboggan Project in strong support of this bill to designate the toboggan as the official sled of Minnesota. For thousands of years, long before Minnesota became a state, Indigenous peoples, including the Ojibwe and Dakota, used toboggans as an essential tool for survival. These sleds carried families, supplies, and food across deep winter landscapes. Built to glide directly over snow without runners, the toboggan is uniquely suited for northern environments like ours. As the fur trade developed, one of the earliest and most influential forces in Minnesota's history, toboggans became even more important. Indigenous trappers and traders used them to transport furs and goods across vast distances in winter, helping build the economic foundation of our state. Without the toboggan, that movement would not have been possible. And this history is not distant, it is local. Right here at our state capitol, there were once toboggan runs. Families gathered on these grounds, embracing winter not as something to endure, but as something to celebrate. And that spirit is still alive today. I want to share a quick perspective from a younger generation of tobogganers. Emmett Colby, age 9, says, "I like history and getting to use toboggans and learn about the past. Sledding with friends and meeting new people is fun." Organizations like the St. Paul Toboggan Club and the Minnesota Toboggan Project are working to preserve and revive this tradition. We are not creating something new. We are protecting something that is so deeply Minnesotan. And no sled represents that better than the toboggan. Designating the toboggan as the official state sled is more than symbolic. It's a recognition of the people, traditions, and resilience that shaped Minnesota. So let's make it official. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your wonderful testimony. We're really glad to have you here to join us this morning. Members, any questions or comments to the bill? Senator Gustafson, any final words for us?
No, Mr. Chair, again, I think that this is a really good example of how we can blend different traditions and to, you know, celebrating Minnesota winters and winter fun. And I really, really appreciate it. And I, again, highly recommend that you all read this letter in your packet. It's very cute. And thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Gustafson. Seeing no further discussion, Senate File 3806 is laid over for possible inclusion. Next up, Senator Hoffman, Senate File 4662. With that, Senator Hoffman is on his way. And members, we will be passing out copies of the bill for members as we wait on for him. Hello, Senator Hoffman. As you're on the way, we will be starting with Senate File 4662, the Hortman State Office Building Memorial Appropriation. Whenever you are ready, Senator Hoffman, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. This bill, Senate File 4662, appropriates money for a memorial to Melissa Hortman at the site of the State Office Building. As you know, Melissa was first elected to the State House in 2004 and served with distinction, gaining the respect of her colleagues on both sides of the aisle to her approach to legislating. Served as the minority leader and then the assistant majority leader before being elected Speaker of the House. She's been called as the most consequential speaker in Minnesota's history, an honor that reflects her incredible legislative work, but also reflects her approach to people. Mr. Chair, she built a relationship with everybody, no matter where they were from or which party they belonged to. And at a time when too many people let politics and partisanship get in the way, she focused on relationships and connections. And so her legislative legacy isn't unmatched. We should also honor and strive to embrace her approach to relationship building, respect, and her commitment to people. Renaming the State Office Building would help all of us. Remember it above else, but also I ask for your support on this whole bill, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Any members' questions or comments to the bill? Again, thank you, Senator Hoffman, for presenting and bringing this forward. Any final words for the committee?
No, Mr. Chair, and I enjoyed doing town halls with her. She made it very clear the position of her and against the Senate, and I could never get any support from Zach Stevenson in those town halls, but I miss her and I love her, so thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Senator Hemmingson Yeager moves Senate File 4662 to be recommended to pass and referred to capital investment. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 4662 is recommended to pass and referred to capital investment. Senator Hoffman, one more bill, Senate File 1717. And looks like there's a amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Yeah, this has got two stops today. One is here and one is judiciary, where they'll go through the changes that in judiciary, but those changes are incorporated in the amendment. Mr. Chair, if you could have somebody move that amendment.
Certainly. We are waiting on the amendment, and its staff should be passing it out.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, it is a big amendment. It was cleaned up by multiple jurisdictions, so I could do, go through.
Certainly,
section by
Senator Hoffman, if you could go through it while we pass out the amendment. Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair and members, what you have in front of you is just, it was easier for us to do. It's a delete all amendment, but all it does is incorporates the changes that we got along the way from Health and Human Services and also Judiciary. So the changes in here will reflect what we need to change. That'll be in Judiciary in those sections 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, and 16. You got that in front of you, Mr. Chair?
Looks like, sorry, there's just a large packet here, which is not all your bills.
It's the same size as the first package,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if you want to look.
Yep.
Yeah, Olivia, that's fine. I have it here, but it's good. Should be 17 sections, Mr. Chair, that you see in front of you.
Certainly.
And I'd be more than happy to slowly read each one of those sections if you want. I'm kidding.
We'll just wait for the packet. Okay, I'm being told that it's being printed right now, but the A1 amendment is available online. Would you like to continue on with describing the bill?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members, I will. It's just, what it does is it establishes a uniform statewide licensure system for massage therapy and Asian bodywork therapy. It replaces Minnesota's current patchwork of more than 100 local ordinances with a single statewide framework that improves public safety, supports small business, and reflects the professional standard that's already in place across our state. Today, massage therapy is regulated under Minnesota Statute 146A, which governs the complementary and alternative medicine practices. While the statute provides a place in law for massage therapy, it does not. It was not designed for a hands-on profession that works directly with patients and clients. As a result, there are several gaps in the public protection. Minnesota statute does not establish minimum education or training requirements, and there's no consistent statewide background check requirement, and the enforcement tools specific to that profession are limited. The current framework largely addresses complaints after harm occurs rather than establishing those preventive safeguards. In addition, it's regulated through 108 different local ordinances across Minnesota. Each city sets its own rules for training. Each city sets its own rules for licensing fees, its own rules for background checks, and its own rules for enforcement. The screening standards vary differently, and if a license is denied or revoked in one city, an individual can simply relocate or practice in another. This creates an enforcement gap, and regulatory loopholes are very difficult for local governments to manage. And so, Mr. Chair, you're also seeing the current system has an operations challenges for legitimate providers. Clinics and practitioners that operate in multiple communities may need to maintain multiple city licenses, pay those duplicative fees, and comply with different local requirements. That administrative burden limits workforce mobility, and it can restrict access to care, which it does. Senate File 1131 addresses the issues by establishing that consistent statewide licensure system. It sets a minimum education and training standards and aligns with the national certification expectations with what Minnesota education programs are already teaching today. It also includes, there's a 5-year grandfathering period, so current practitioners can just obtain license based on that prior experience, and that ensures the existing workforce and small businesses are not disrupted. Just as important at what the bill does not do, it does not restrict other therapies regulated under chapters 146A. Let me repeat that. It does not restrict other therapies regulated under chapter 146A, requiring additional schooling for professionals who are already practicing, or limit that licensed healthcare providers such as physical therapists or chiropractors from performing services within their existing scope of practice. That's a licensure issue, Mr. Chair. Ultimately, this bill is about public protection, workforce stability, and regulatory modernization. It reduces the administrative burdens on small businesses, and it brings Minnesota in line with the 46 other states that already have licensed massage therapists. It's not about creating new barriers, Mr. Chair. It's about modernizing the regulation, protecting the public, and aligning Minnesota law with the professional standards that already exist. Thank you for letting me say that, Mr. Chair and members.
All right, thank you, Senator Hoffman. And it looks like council might have a technical fix to the amendment. Ms. James?
Mr. Chair and members, in judiciary today, there's one small item that they're going to take care of that we can incorporate into the A1, and this is on page 21, line 20. Before the word submitting, insert comma in good faith, comma.
Thank you, Ms. James. So line 21.20. So it would be an amendment to an amendment, correct, Ms. James?
You'll just move both of them together.
Okay, we'll just move both of them together.
And Mr. Chair, with that, you'll let judiciary know that that's
Yeah.
what they were going to fix in judiciary, that it was actually fixed here.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that.
Senator Hoffman. So there's a little bit, we're still waiting on the printing, but if members are able to take a look at it online, Senator Gustafson would like to move the A1 amendment as currently amended, as orally amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The A1 amendment is adopted. Senator Hoffman, any other testifiers to this bill? Any members, any questions or comments?
Move it on.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hoffman. So just so I'm clear on what we have in front of us, does this bill provide, I'm just reading the letters in the packet, maybe is a better way to enter into this. Does this bill provide the statewide regulatory, I'm going to look for the letter from the League of Minnesota Cities, the statewide registration and licensing of massage therapists? Is that what the A1 amendment does?
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair and Senator McQuaid, yeah, that's been the whole issue from the get-go, is that one city. So if I'm hanging out in Ham Lake and I work for a chiropractor there, I have to pay Ham Lake's licensing, and then I go and hang out in Elk River and I have the chiropractor that I'm working for there, and then I got to go get a licensing in Elk River. This just establishes that centralized approach so that there's consistency. So yes.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman. That gives you the support for the bill. I just wanted to make sure we were doing it, because I support that. Thank you.
All right, any other member questions or comments to the bill? Any testifiers that would like to testify on the bill? All right, seeing no further discussion, Senator.
We have testifiers.
Sorry, we did not see them online there. Looks like we have a remote testifier. Petra Broken is first on the list. Please state your name on the record and you may begin. And this is a remote.
My name is Petra.
Petra.
My name is
Yeah, please.
Petra Broken.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Sorry, okay. I'm a board member of the Minnesota Natural Health Coalition, and I'm also a Minnesota attorney, and I'd ask you all to oppose this bill. One of the reasons the proponents are arguing is that the sex trafficking argument has been there. There's really no good evidence that any type of regulation will lead to any lessening of sex trafficking. Mississippi, for example, has one of the highest levels of sex trafficking and has had licensure for something like 25 years. This committee must follow Minnesota statutes in their analysis of whether to pass any regulations of occupations. That is Minnesota Statute 214, which regulates the analysis. What other states do, therefore, is not relevant because they do not have Minnesota Statute 214. So if there are other laws that can act to regulate the situation, then no new regulation of the occupation should occur. In terms of danger, like sex trafficking, there are 609 laws and 146A. The next issue is harm. Proponents have argued that massage can lead to harm. This has not been shown to occur in Minnesota. What I understand is there's 5,000 to 8,000 unlicensed massage and bodywork therapists in Minnesota without cases of harm. There has to be harm that's shown. In one of the other committee meetings where I was, the harm that was discussed was in Iowa, which has a licensing law. Massage therapists are already licensed there, so licensing did not affect it. There has to be evidence here in Minnesota that the law, that 1131, would change this in some type of way. In terms of the patchwork issue, again, this is not a legal reason to regulate massage under 214. It is an annoyance, but not a legal reason. There are ways to handle this with amendments that do not arise to a new level of licensing. The licensing is going to discriminate against the practitioners who do not fall into the categories that are in the new bill. other arguments I've heard was that we should recognize the massage therapists for what they've done and that this new licensing would recognize them. They could have their own credentialing. I would argue that the state shouldn't be in the business of passing laws to credential or to make things simpler when that goes against the state law that exists, which is 214. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, Sean Blodgett, that will be joining us remotely. Please state your name for the record, and then you may begin.
Good morning, Chair Zhang and members of the committee. Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to testify today. My name is Sean Blodgett, and I'm a traditional naturopath with over 25 years of experience in this industry and regulated under Statute 146A. One thing I would point out to Senator Hoffman is Statute 471.709 is a massage therapist that works under a licensed medical professional under Chapters 147 or 148 or 150A is exempt from needing a city license. So I've also submitted written testimony that goes more in depth. The views I expressed today are my own. I strongly oppose Senate File 1131 or 1717, even in its voluntary form. Proponents, including the city of Minneapolis, claim this bill solves the patchwork of city licenses, but Minneapolis's own letter proves the actual opposite. In Minneapolis, they only regulate the business side and leave practitioner oversight to 146A. That approach has worked for them. The real solution is simple. Amend 146A to explicitly preempt local governments from requiring practitioner license. What the bill actually does is reduce protections for the public, and I'll explain. Under 146A, every practitioner must give a client bill of rights that lists their exact education and training. This bill does not require that disclosure, and with over 35 different unique styles of massage and many lineage-based practices, consumers would actually be less informed under this bill. This bill also harms this low-wage profession, where it is not uncommon for a massage practitioner to only stay in the industry for 2 to 5 years, while others do it only occasionally. Training costs $6,000 to $30,000. The MBLEX is only offered in English and Spanish, disadvantaging Minnesota's large communities where English and Spanish are not the first language. It shuts out authentic cultural modalities like Thai massage, lomi lomi, Ayurvedic massage, Mayan abdominal massage, and others that rely on lineage training. Minnesota already has a proven inclusive framework under 146A. We should strengthen that and not create a new system that AMTA itself has admitted does not reduce trafficking. I respectfully urge to not pass this vote. Thank you.
Next up, Leo Cashman will be joining us online. Please state your name for the record, and you may begin.
Yeah, my name is Leo B. Cashman. I'm a co-founder of Minnesota Natural Health Legal Reform Project.
Mr. Cashman, are you able to turn on the video? We need to see you for the testimony here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that help?
It's been turned off.
I think it's going to come on now.
Thank you.
There it is. Thank you. Yes, I also opposed passage of Senate File 1131, and we are seeing the word licensure again. We have been opposed to licensure for massage therapists, and the statute 146A is a freedom statute, and it does have wonderful consumer protection provisions. We would like to see that be the continuing way that massage therapy is licensed, is regulated in our state, and we do not need any new form of regulation. The 146A has worked very well over the last 25 years, and we think that it is very successful, and there's no justification for changing it and picking winners and losers and singling out those who are able to show a certain educational credential as being the favored part of the practitioner community. So I think this is special interest legislation driven by people who would seek to dominate the profession and perhaps over time drive out other practitioners who don't meet the same standards that would be required by the licensure. So I also urge you to reject this bill as being unnecessary and special interest legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. And then looks like we have Rachel Romanelli listed here. Please make your way forward. And following that is Carrie Volkart. Yeah, you can make your way up. Please state your name for the record, and then you may begin.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Rachel Romanelli, and I've been a licensed massage therapist for 29 years. Holding my license in Washington State, I'm also a nationally certified board massage therapist. In your packets, you will find letters addressing public harm, along with support from the League of Cities and the City of Minneapolis. You will also find testimony from massage therapists, educators, and citizens. I also currently serve as the Government Relations Chair for the American Massage Therapy Association Minnesota chapter. So there are just a couple things I want to address here too, and just give you some context to our state. So there are 45 states that have mandatory licensure. That also includes DC, so that's where you get the number 46. Minnesota is only one of 3 states that does not have a mandatory regulation. That's Minnesota, Kansas, and Wyoming. There are 2 states, California and Vermont, that regulate by an optional licensure or registration. We estimate between our large organizations here that we have approximately 5,000 practitioners that are currently working in Minnesota, with 300 to 400 new graduates in our schools every year that are coming out. We've got about 14 programs that are in the state right now that are teaching and educating massage therapists that teach at 600 hours or more of education. That is aligned with our national standards. Sorry, I might have said that a little bit backwards. But what truly defines Minnesota right now is not our workforce, it is our fragmented system. There are 856 Minnesota cities. Only 108 regulate massage therapy, each with different rules. In some cities, a therapist needs 150 hours of education. In others, there are 600 hours that are required. Some charge no fee at all. So I want to give you a couple of examples of those. In Anoka, they require 150 hours of education and a $225 annual fee. In St. Paul, education is required of 500 hours, and annually it's a $97 individual fee. In North St. Paul, 0 hours and $150 annual fee. In West St. Paul, there are 500 hours of education, and if you're employed, it's an $80 annual fee, and if you're independent, it's $500 at least. In Roseville, it's 600 hours of education and $300 annually. In Brainerd, there's no education and no requirement and no fee. In Brooklyn Center, there's an annual establishment fee of $3,000 and a $1,500 investigation fee. Their ordinance in sections 23 through 1700 and 23 through 1720, number 6 requires that a massage therapist provide evidence in the form of a current certificate from a licensed physician practicing in Minnesota indicating that A, within the past 30 days, the physician has examined the applicant, and B, that the examination was for the purpose of determining whether the applicant has any communicable diseases. And C, that as a result of that examination, the physician believes that the applicant is not suffering from any communicable diseases that would disqualify them from engaging in the practice of massage. This is not a system grounded in public safety. It is a patchwork of inconsistent, outdated, and sometimes irrelevant requirements. And most importantly, it does not prevent bad actors. It allows them to move from city to city without accountability. Senate File 1131 prepares to fix this. It creates a statewide framework, one standard, one system, while still allowing local control of businesses. This does not interrupt 146A. This bill is not about adding burden. It is about creating clarity, consistency, and accountability. Minnesota has the education. Minnesota has the workforce. What we are missing is a framework to protect the public and support the existing profession that serves Minnesotans every day. I respectfully ask for you to support this bill. Thank you, and I will be available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Carrie
Borkhardt.
Brocart?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. My name is Carrie Borkhardt. I live in Senator McCoy's district. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I am testing in favor of this bill as a person with lived experience. In 2024, while staying at Madden's Resort near Brainerd, I got a massage at the Madden Spa. During that massage, the male massage therapist sexually assaulted me. Massage is a very vulnerable situation. People are naked, drowsy, and may fall asleep, as I often do. My reaction when I realized I was being assaulted was to freeze. While that is a very common reaction in this situation, it also left me with shame and embarrassment. I know from my professional experience that had I been someone with a history of prior sexual abuse, this experience could have triggered a recurrence of PTSD. Or if I was a teenager or young adult, this could have been more emotionally scarring. I have done everything I could to prevent this perpetrator from assaulting anyone else. I reported it to Madden's, who immediately suspended him. But there was nothing to prevent him from going to Grandview or some other spa. I filed a police report with Cass County Sheriff's Office. Cass County has no massage therapy licensing, as you just heard. Cass County declined to prosecute my case because he denied doing it, and there was no tissue, or in other words, DNA evidence, which is usually the case with this kind of sexual assault. Even though the perpetrator admitted to the investigator that he had sexually touched multiple women during massages and estimated that 4 women per week gave him a signal that they wanted sexual touching. As all of you know, most cases of sexual assault are not criminally prosecuted. Criminal prosecution cannot be the primary way we deal with this crime. I also filed a complaint under Minnesota Statute 146A, which you've been hearing about from other testifiers, with the Minnesota Department of Health. The investigator at MDH told me they don't have good tracking of perpetrators who move about the state because the 100-plus jurisdictions do not communicate well with each other. Further, he said sanctions are limited by a law that, quote, has no teeth. He told me that Minnesota needs a massage licensing law. In my experience, what we have doesn't work. In the past 35 years, I've been to many male and female massage therapists who were well-trained and professional. I have physicians who have recommended massage therapy for me for my medical issues. Massage therapy professionals deserve to have their credentials and safety validated through a state process. The public, prospective employers, and massage therapists themselves would all benefit by the posting of a state registration or license. Thank you so much for hearing my story.
Thank you for sharing your story with us here today. Next up, Christine Huber. Following that, Barbara York. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Hi, I'm Christine Huber with the American Massage Therapy Association. I manage legislative and regulatory affairs. The AMTA advocates for fair and consistent professional licensing in all 50 states, promotes public education on the efficacy of massage therapy, fosters professional ethics and standards, and supports the advancement of clinical massage therapy research. We represent more than 108,000 members nationwide. Massage therapy is an integral component of the U.S. healthcare system and is widely recognized as an effective non-pharmacological approach to pain management. A substantial body of clinical research supports its efficacy with endorsements from institutions such as the National Institutes of Health, the American College of Physicians, the American Academy of Family Medicine, and the Joint Commission. Leading healthcare organizations including Mayo Clinic, MD Anderson Cancer Center, Duke Integrative Medicine, the Cleveland Clinic, and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center have integrated massage therapy into patient care for a range of medical conditions. Minnesota remains one of only 3 states without statewide regulation for massage therapy. As a result, many massage therapists in the state must navigate a patchwork of local ordinances, comply with multiple municipal regulations, and pay a multitude of fees. This fragmented system creates unnecessary financial burdens, regulatory inconsistencies, and confusion for both practitioners and the public. Statewide regulation is essential to ensuring public protection, professional accountability, and uniform standards of practice. Registration would establish a clear scope of practice, set minimum education and training requirements, require background checks for all massage practitioners, and create a system to address ethical violations and disciplinary concerns. It would distinguish trained and qualified massage therapy professionals from unregulated or potentially harmful practices, strengthening consumer confidence and safety. Without massage therapy registration, Minnesota residents lack the consistent protection available in nearly every other state. Public safeguards remain limited as mechanisms are not implemented to address background checks, ethical violations, and convictions relevant to the practice of massage therapy and Asian bodywork. SF 1131 establishes statewide standards that protect consumers and practitioners while expanding access to safe, quality care across Minnesota. Establishing massage therapy registration through this bill is a crucial step towards increasing access to non-pharmacological care while strengthening public policy and practitioner safety. We remain committed to advocating for the highest professional standards on behalf of massage therapists and the public, and we appreciate your time today.
All right, thank you, testifiers. Senator Mayquaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. It could be either for Ms. Romanelli or Ms. Borchardt, or sorry, Ms. Huber. If you could, you listed off, it was like 108 cities have regulations, and you said there's 638 cities in Minnesota? I don't know if I quite caught that. I should know.
To the testifier.
Thank you, Senator Mayquaid. There are 856 cities, and 108 have a ordinance to regulate massage therapy businesses.
Senator Mayquaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of those 100, or I guess from the remaining, 740 some, or 30 some cities or localities that don't have regulations, is there a higher concentration or percentage of massage therapy practitioners or businesses there? Do you know?
To the testifier.
Thank you for your question. That's a very interesting question. I actually, I don't have the information in front of me right now, but we could put that together and send that in to you, of course. But generally in larger cities, like in the Twin Cities, we're gonna have a higher concentration of massage therapists that are either, through the American Massage Therapy or other organizations. But that's probably the best answer I can give right now. Thank you.
Senator Mayquaid. Any other members, questions or comments? Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I forget, could we roll call this, please?
A roll call being requested. A roll call will be given. Sorry, there's one more testifier.
Oh, sure.
Miss Barbara York, is that correct? Yes. Sorry about that. Oh, and Senator Barr, sorry for housekeeping. So this bill will be laid over, so no roll call will be needed. Ms. York, please state your name for the record, and you may begin.
My name is Barbara York, and I am here again after many years. I've sat next to Senator Hoffman in the past. And once again, the parties that have opposed massage licensing in the past oppose 1131 and the amendment. Though it may be a registration, it may have all the simple terms that look good on paper, they have consequences that are harmful, and they are baby steps to the licensing that it's always pursued. These attempts have persisted since 1987. Schools and national groups have always proposed these bills. They will profit from the laws. They have hired lobbyists and received directives and financial support from the national groups. Minnesota practitioners and consumers, all volunteers, have opposed this approach and have passed more suitable laws that protect the consumer and practitioner and punish the predators. See license, we talk about the 146A, which is a complementary and alternative health care provider regulation. Chapter 609 punishes the predators. The legal system failed in protecting her. But there is a law that says a massage therapist who abuses anybody on the table will go to jail, go to prison. They will be a registered sex offender regardless of what profession they pursue. Interestingly, the schools and national groups that talk about consumer protection did not support either the 146A and, in writing, the 609. They did not support penalizing predatory practitioners. State law under 214 requires proof of harm in order to license. It is not to glorify practitioners, but to protect the public. Since 1987, we have had no proof of harm. We have had talks about other states, but it's not proof of harm in Minnesota. The Attorney General is not here showing you proof of harm. The 146A has not given you information about reports of harm from massage therapy. Generally, the reports are about men sexually abusing clients. This is covered already by law, and it has been effective. The public is not asking for this. If you look, papers have a tendency to disappear, don't they? I got it here. Oh. On page 4, the limits of practice. All of those limits of practice refer to practices which are licensed and already have penalties for stepping into those arenas. Doing massage is not invasive. On page 23, where they talk about municipalities may have business license, they can adopt what Minneapolis did, which we supported. We are not against regulation. We are against limiting this field and raising the prices to consumers, which is exactly what 214 says we cannot do. The law says we cannot do. This is covered. We are considered, we, as your constituents, we, the people of Minnesota, not the people who come and say they have a license in another state. Doesn't matter if they have a license in another state. It's not covering them here. And so we please ask you to oppose whatever form this is taking, that it does not meet the statutory requirements at all. It is just a guise to control the market, which is seen across the country as not protecting against sex trafficking, which is what cities are looking for, is protection from that. Has nothing to do with massage. We are not both. We are massage therapists. Trafficking comes under a whole different field. The Minnesota Advocates for Human Rights have asked for different bills and have been ignored on this when they have written the book on sex trafficking, human trafficking. They asked for something like the business license that Minneapolis did, which is more effective. And the people sitting here saying this were the ones who created the city licenses and created this problem for the people. And then they tell them that'll go away. It will not. It'll be required, and the business license. So this will be an additional thing. I have been in practice since 1983. My income supplements my Social Security. I have never harmed anyone. My insurance for business out of my home is only $15 to cover for the business.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'll
This
let
is
you
a lot of
wrap up
cost.
your thought as we move on.
Yes, this hurts the practitioners. It costs money. It costs a lot of educational issues that they have not needed. A massage therapist does not harm. Our field does not harm. There's no proof. Please oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And members, a reminder, this bill will be laid over. Any questions or comments from members? Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author, if you could look at, I guess it's section 4, page 4, pretty much that whole first, well, most of the page. It says the limitations, practice of massage therapy and Asian bodywork therapy do not include, and then it's most of the rest of the page. Are these things that are not included? I can see one of them I get in there is probably acupuncture listed as a different way, like injection therapy or things like that. Basically, what is this whole, can you explain that whole list? Just go through it for me, please.
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair and Senator, thank you. What this does is it provides specific limitations to the practice of massage therapy and the Asian bodywork therapy. It also requires a licensed practitioner to refer clients to licensed healthcare providers if that medical condition is beyond the scope. It got all wordsmithed up there, Senator Barr, so yeah.
Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So wouldn't it be easier to say what a massage therapist can do as opposed to list everything you don't want them to do? And if you're nodding, so it's, show me where that's at, please.
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair and Senator Barr, if you look at page 1.15, you see the definitions. Actually, 1.8 starts the definitions, and then you go into the second page, Senator, beginning at 2.15, and that actually has that listing.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then
Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 324 is the line number. Approved credentialing examinations under the duties of commissioner. Are you laying out any framework for that, or just leaving it to the commissioner to decide what to be examined?
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair and Senator Barr, there's going to be that council. If you look at the establishment of a council, just like you have you go get a haircut, you got a cosmetologist that's cutting your hair. That's a licensed, hair cutter. They're driven by the board of cosmetology. In this case, there's going to be this council that's going to establish those. There still has to be some rules and establishment after that. So that puts the system in motion is what that does, Cal.
Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm glad you brought up the cosmetology board, because I'm really familiar with that, being married to a cosmetologist. And you just pretty much put the axe in this bill for me, having done with that. Says her son works at Mayo Clinic, and the cleanliness standards in the hair salon submitted by the board are actually stricter than the cleanliness standards at Mayo, because her son is a charge nurse at Mayo. I have seen regulation run good people out of business because it's so overregulated, so screwed up, and there's no effective appeal process. So if there was, some kind of a framework as opposed to, here you guys go, and we're just going to start building the regulations, which is what happens in every other case. So we'll move on to another question. We can talk about
Senator
that
Barr.
more. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on page 7, in the subdivision 3, starting on 718, it's actually 721 is where my question is at. Post-secondary program is satisfactory completing if you want education and training requirements for Asian Baji therapy registration. What a secondary program, is that could trade school qualify as a secondary program?
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, under the definitions of Minnesota, post-secondary, correct. You would be whatever the discipline is. And going back, Mr. Chair, and Cal, it was only for the licensure that I was talking about, not necessarily those regulations. So didn't mean to trigger you there, man.
Well,
Senator Barr.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So but we're basically approved credentialing examination. That's basically turning it over to them, where it would it would get out of control pretty fast. I can see, having watched government how easy government gets out of control. And then I'm just going to close with a couple of quick comments. To the last testifier, this is exactly what this is a fencing bill. I get that we have different fees or different registrations in different cities, and if there's one that's extremely onerous, you're not going to see a plethora of massage therapists working in that area, where it's, and just so you know, I have used multiple massage therapists. I've had some that I just didn't like their technique, and I've got others that you go in and you end up falling asleep and you walk out like, did I even get a massage? It's kind of, you have to almost shop around a little bit to find something that somebody you're comfortable with. So when we start putting all these regulations, pretty soon we start taking away the ability of the massage therapist to, when you get the examination, you're going to be, this is exactly your exact procedures. When I walk in, it's like I have certain parts, I have a leg that I have a problem with, and it's all muscular. So I need a deep massage, deep tissue massage in that leg, but then other parts, I just need to get untightened up or whatever. I don't know what the technical terms are for it, but the ones that the massage therapists there's two of them that I've actually settled on is doing a pretty good job, but they've dialed in exactly what I need, where I want, how I want. And when I've used other ones, it's like, I'm not going back. But when you end up, this bill takes away a lot of the freedom of choice by putting everybody in the same box. And we remove a lot of the individuality from the individuals. And I mean, no, we're not voting on this today because it's being laid over, but I am not in favor of fencing to start with, and I don't think this is exactly, there's too many types of Asian massage to begin with. I mean, there's an entirely, every country has a little bit different massage, and it just says Asian massage as a whole. There's a lot of technicalities, I think, that are not being addressed in here that either should be addressed or shouldn't be addressed at all, and kind of clarify some of this. If it's just a matter of you want a registration fee, statewide statute or statewide rules on that, this bill should be a whole lot smaller than what it is today. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the bill? Senator Mayquay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll just remind the committee that I think our jurisdiction on this bill is the Advisory Council on page 23,
Yep.
and then page 24. And so, Senator Hoffman, I appreciate you bringing the bill. I think, I can't think of any other profession in Minnesota where where a stranger is touching you and you are potentially naked that we don't regulate in some way. And we are late to human services, and that is certainly
I was just going to look at you, gavel.
yeah, right. Professions that also, deal with intimate natures, and we regulate and license there as well. So I think this is a good bill, and I think the Advisory Council is a good way to be sure that we have the right folks at the table advising the commissioner to make sure that we're looking at the right things as we move forward. So thank you for bringing this bill, and I'll be supporting it when it comes up for a vote eventually.
Senator Oskowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just echo really a lot of what Senator Barr had to say. I'm looking on page 7 of the bills, Senator Hoffman. I mean, we're requiring a student to get $2 million to $6 million in insurance coverage. That's a student in the bill. I mean, this is not only a fencing bill, it's higher than an 8-foot deer fence, Senator Hoffman. And so, I voted probably against every fencing bill that's come before the legislature, but this one's really a high fence. So, if you want to get a bill through, maybe make the fence just a little bit shorter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing that, Senator Hoffman, the final word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for hearing this, and Cody Holliday will be paying Cal Bar a visit as soon as this hearing's over. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Senate File 1717 as amended is laid over. Next up, we have Senator Johnson Stewart, Senate File 4660. I think she will be joining us remotely.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Whenever you are ready, Senator, you may begin.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two bills that were brought to me from Hennepin County, and they both relate to the medical examiner's office. The very first one, SF 4660, relates to the membership of the medical examiner board. County boards in Minnesota have the authority to select and appoint a medical examiner except in Hennepin County. By law, the Hennepin County Board must impanel a separate medical examiner board to evaluate and recommend applicants for appointment. The membership of the medical examiner board includes people with specialized training and knowledge who are uniquely positioned within the medical and forensic community. The problem that this bill seeks to remedy is that the existing language mandates that the panel be filled with professional organizations that no longer exist, such as the Minnesota Society of Pathologists. So this proposed language, specific to selection of the Hennepin County Medical Examiner, updates the board membership to include organizations that do exist and specifies that it include qualified representatives from the University of Minnesota Medical School, Hennepin Healthcare, and the Medical Examiner's Office. So it's simply updating language that no longer applies.
All right, thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. And we have a testifier here, Sean Wilson. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you. My name is Sean Wilson. I'm the Director of Operations for the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office. Since our inception in 1964, Hennepin County has had only 3 chief medical examiners. Dr. Andrew Baker, the chief medical examiner since 2004, was on staff and appointed through only a personal recommendation of his predecessor. No medical examiner board, just a board hearing. In fact, to our knowledge, no medical examiner has ever been appointed using the process currently outlined in statute. In 2006, when Chapter 390 underwent a major overhaul, that language, apparently a holdover from another section of statute, made the cut without much consideration or content validation. Although the anticipation of the inevitable retirement of Dr. Baker is the impetus for our current action, this flawed language has been a known issue for many years. A couple of questions should come to mind at this point. Why is Hennepin County different? And why, if no chief medical examiner has ever been selected using this process, why should we continue to perpetuate it? The answer is simple. Medical examiners and coroners are not created equal. Coroners can be elected, whereas medical examiners are appointed. In 2006, Section 390.011 established that medical examiners were independent county officials. In the absence of independent vetting of candidate qualifications by the medical examiner board with specialized knowledge, the appointee may be underqualified or incompetent, or the appointment itself be viewed as bias or a quid pro quo action, any one of which would inherently risk the neutrality and independence of the chief medical examiner. Hennepin County provides death investigation to 1 in 3 Minnesotans. I'm going to repeat that. 1 out of every 3 Minnesotans. We are home to 2 level 1 trauma centers, the only burn unit and hyperbaric chamber in the region, and a children's hospital, which translates to more trauma victims, high-profile cases, and complicated investigations. The 3 chiefs I mentioned previously hold the distinction of all being president of our National Association of Medical Examiners, and Dr. Gary Peterson drafted the standards by which all medical examiners in the country are measured. To my knowledge, that track record is unprecedented in the country. Updating this existing language not only establishes a viable process for the selection of Dr. Baker's successor, but it continues to ensure that Hennepin County will uphold the highest standards of death investigation, free from outside influence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the testimony. Members, any questions or comments to the bill? Seeing none, Senator Johnson Stewart, any closing remarks for us?
No, thank you. It's long past time that we have this change made, and I would ask the testifier stay for the next presentation just in case there's questions.
Certainly. Seeing no further discussion, Senator Johnson Stewart moved Senate File 4660 to be recommended to pass and to be placed on general orders. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 4660 is recommended to pass and referred to general orders. Next up, Senator Johnson Stewart, Senate File 4661.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. This is also a medical examiner bill. However, this bill applies to medical and, medical examiners and coroners from across the state. For over 100 years, medical examiners and coroners have been required to dispose of decedents' property through public auction. For decades, the macabre spectacle drew large crowds and was reported on by local newspaper publications. When I read this, I thought of the scene in A Christmas Carol where they're going through his stuff after he's died and they auction it off. It's a little bit like that. SF 4661 seeks to update the language and provide more modern, sensible, and dignified solutions to the handling and disposition of personal effects on unclaimed and unidentified bodies long ago buried or cremated. So again, this is simply for those people who have no one to claim their belongings or they're unidentified. This bill also enables the medical examiner to recover reasonable costs and limits exposure to frivolous claims in the future. Revenue would be retained by the department and be used to offset expenses such as transport, body bags, and other ancillary expenses. Hennepin County anticipates recouping less than $1,000 annually, so it's important to note that these costs recovered are indeed minimal. They simply just do not take in that much property with value. They are currently utilizing loopholes in the existing law to release items to funeral homes who can dispose of this property at their discretion. And in short, this bill closes that loophole and creates a very transparent process. The proposed language offers medical examiners and coroners around the state a pragmatic approach to address this issue, allowing for individual circumstances to be considered for each decedent or dead person. The language in this bill was peer-reviewed by representatives from Hennepin, Ramsey, Midwest or Anoka, and the Southern Regional, which includes Mayo Medical Examiner's Office, which combined to provide medical legal death investigation in 74 of our 87 counties. So it is important that it's been peer-reviewed by many medical examiner offices across the state. That's all I have.
Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. Mr. Wilson, welcome again. You may please state your name for the record. You may begin.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you again for this opportunity. Sean Wilson, Director of Operations for the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office. And just to add to what the sponsor mentioned, 74 of the 87 counties represents 96% of Minnesotans, and of those remaining counties, they are serviced by the Sioux Falls office or the Grand Forks, North Dakota office. So I'll begin my testimony today by taking you back in a time machine to 1911. Dr. Gilbert Seashore, then Hennepin County coroner, held the first public auction at the City Morgue in Minneapolis. The crowd of nearly 100 crammed into the tight lobby at the City Morgue, attracted by terrible sadness and the allure of a weird freak show. The media later published the headline, "Gaiety at the Morgue." Dr. Seashore and his deputy coroner were not examining dead bodies to provide answers to grieving families. Instead, they wielded gavels from elevated positions, driving up bids with tales more morbid and melodramatic than the one before, while displaying watches, rings, knives, revolvers used in suicides, clothing, and other trinkets recovered from the pockets of unclaimed dead. The most peculiar item sold was a glass eye belonging to a quote-unquote Oriental in 1930. This macabre spectacle continued for 5 decades, being passed down from coroner to coroner. By 1955, the auctions had faded into the history books, our sensibilities have sharpened, social norms have shifted, but the law remained unchanged. Fast forward 70 years, people continue to die with items in their pockets, and while their bodies go unclaimed, and some of their bodies go unclaimed, and so does that property, most of which is sentimental and has no value. a wallet with scraps of paper, or some costume jewelry. The county provides for a dignified burial using burial assistance funds. Soiled clothing deemed biohazardous is disposed of, but the property remains. When no family comes forward to make a claim and the remains are long since buried, the medical examiner becomes the permanent custodian of that property and is left with one option: a public auction. The reality is that we catalog those items, place them into a forgotten corner of the building for infinite storage. The idea of resurrecting a public auction holds no place in our modern society. Through Senate File 4661, we are asking you to give the medical examiner and coroner's offices the authority to decide what should happen to those items based on individual circumstances. Should they remain with the decedent in burial or be released to a distant blood relative not previously permitted to have them by law? And when practical and necessary, allow a medical examiner or coroner to respectfully and discreetly recover reasonable expenses. This bill is not a revenue-generating scheme. There is no financial windfall hiding in the recesses of county morgues. We have the ability to sell property now under statute, and we do not exercise that authority. Rather, this bill is asking you to help me bring back dignity to our unclaimed and our unidentified dead. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for that. Members, any questions or comments? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you for the bill. I think you've done a very comprehensive job with this bill, and I appreciate it. I just have a question about some of the stricken language. So back in 1900, whatever date it was that you outlined, they took a fingerprint of each finger of each hand of the decedent. What did they do with the fingerprints? Did they give them to law enforcement for their files, or what was the purpose?
Director Wilson.
Yes, thank you for the question, Senator. The stricken language with respect to the fingerprints, there are existing laws that manage how we handle unidentified and unclaimed remains now, which includes still collecting fingerprints as well as DNA and other items. As far as what they used to do in the past, I believe, yes, they would give it to law enforcement and they would keep it on file. So we still continue that practice today, just under another statute.
Thank you.
Any other members? Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering if you could explain a little more what you mean by recovering reasonable expenses, like from who and how? Is it like keeping a $5 bill that you find that happens to be on the person, or what exactly do you mean by that statement you made?
Director Wilson.
Thank you, Senator. With respect to cash on hand, the cash on hand is actually already recovered and used to offset burial expenses through the Burial Assistance Fund. What we're talking about here is if you could imagine what you have on your person today. So for instance, I see you have what appears to be a gold ring, something like that. We do not see the value in disposing of that into a trash can. We would our preference would be to leave it with the decedent. If that, for some reason, is not an option, for instance, they are cremated, we become the permanent custodian of that. And what we would like the option to do is to be able to then sell that ring through other means besides a public auction, to be able to recover whatever its value is, for instance, in wholesale gold, and then use that to offset. The cost that we're looking at, it costs the county approximately $5,500 to bury or cremate an unclaimed decedent. And those costs include personnel costs, they include transport costs of the remains, they include a body bag, and then of course all of the investigative time that we invest in this. So really what we're talking about, I think I gave an estimate to the House side of $1,000. I believe that to be a gross overestimate, but I was put on the spot to give a number. In 15 years, what we're talking about, at least I went back and looked at our inventories, we have one gold chain, what appears to be one gold chain in the inventory. So again, this is not some windfall that we are trying to slip by you here.
Thank you. Members, any other questions or comments? Seeing no further discussion, Senator Johnson Stewart moves Senate File 4661 to be recommended to pass and referred to judiciary. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion passes. Senate File 4661 is recommended to pass and referred to judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Director Wilson. And looks like Senator Kupec will be joining us for Senate File 4640.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Senator Kupec. Whenever you're ready, you may proceed. And it looks like you have a A1 amendment.
I do. I have an A1 author's amendment, Mr. Chair.
All right. Senator Hemmingson Yeager moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The A1 amendment is adopted. Senator Kupec, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. This is a Senate File 4640. This is a bipartisan bill that combats fraud by strengthening ethics rules and prevents conflicts of interest in the legislature. Specifically, a former legislator can't take a job with an employer for 1 year after leaving office while serving in the legislature if they voted to pass a law that specifically named that employer to receive a grant. Similarly, a public employee who was involved in selecting, evaluating, awarding, auditing, or administrating a grant may not take a job for 1 year with an employer that was named in a recipient of that grant. Before I get a little more into this, this was brought about, we were in Health and Human Services, as Senator Coran was there on that committee too, and we heard from the Office of the Legislative Auditor about the Behavioral Health Administrator grants, where we saw that some employees who had administered those grants then left and went and became a consultant for that nonprofit. So after the committee, Senator Liskey and myself said, that doesn't seem right, and we ought to do something about that. I know Senator Coran also has a similar, a bill that has some similar provisions, and it's hoped that maybe in the future we'll actually be able to marry those bills up. But the blatant conflicts that have happened just this year, as I stated, from that Behavioral Health Administration, that approved over $670,000 to a company, and then again, they went to work for that company as a consultant. The amendment that we just added on here kind of clarifies a little bit the language about what the difference of employee and consultant is. Felt like we didn't have enough good definition of that consultant, so that we added that. Any fraud against our state is unacceptable. Minnesotans expect their government to be responsible, transparent, and protective with taxpayer dollars. Fraud undermines our trust and steals resources from the people who need them most. We've seen it harm people with disabilities, autism, substance abuse disorders, and seniors needing support with daily living. Again, I'm proud to say that this bill, authored by both Republicans and Democrats, combating fraud should not be a left or right issue. It is a right or wrong issue. My constituents back home expect lawmakers to come together and to protect their tax dollars and make government work for them. And I believe that this bill is an example of how we can meet that moment. So I'd like to thank my co-authors, Senator Kroon, Gustafson, Hochschild, and Liskey, for being on this bill. And with that, members, I am happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Senator Kupec. Members, any questions or comments? Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is one of those bills where you wish there was a whole lot more boxes to put co-authors on, because I think you'd have every member of the legislature signing on to this. I like the fact that you've included not just the grants managers, but also legislators in this. The 1 year moratorium is probably long enough. Legislators might need a little longer time, but as far as grant managers, a year is good. I appreciate you bringing this forward. I was in the OLA presentation when the OLA presented this, and I'm glad you picked up the ball and ran with it. Thank you. Great bill.
Senator Hemmingson Yeager.
Thank you, Chair.
I really appreciate the intent of this bill as well. I do think I like the narrow kind of focus, like right in the beginning about a former legislator, very actionable consequence kind of thing. My concern comes with, I was just thinking about the Department of Health with this. So the Department of Health deals with a lot of grants. They deal indirectly with grants, you know, with counties, with other kind of entities. And they went through a sweeping cut of federal cuts last year. A lot of them lost their job. So I would be concerned that I'm concerned that this might be overly broad, in that if people are getting laid off from their job and they were indirectly involved, like, what does that do for their job in the future? So kind of like, you could just maybe address that a little bit, or maybe talk about like define business entity. That would be helpful for me.
Senator Kupec.
Sure, and I know this is kind of the first stop of this. We've got several stops going forward, and I do, you know, I am concerned. I don't want to also sweep in anybody who's maybe at a lower level position. You know, clearly, I think the problems we have seen, particularly in DHS, I think it's an administrative problem, and the higher ups who administer these grants and oversee those employees, I think that's really where the problem has been. And you're right, if somebody at a lower level who just happened to, you know, do some kind of clerical work on a bill and then say they got laid off for some reason or something happened, and then they found another job, you would not want to preclude them from doing that. So I'm happy to make some tweaks going forward. I know we've got several committee stops with this bill.
Senator Coran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Kupec, I think we will, in one of your next stops, we'll get the comparison of Senate File 3900, and, you know, enhance it with keeping in the same focus. But I don't believe that your current bill limits employment. It just limits employment in a particular business in which you've participated materially in awarding a grant, or the evaluation, to me, or creation of the grant content. And so that industry is large enough that they have plenty of options to go out and seek employment, just not one that they had a financial or an impact on a grant program. So I think it's not limiting. It limits them to the businesses, which are mostly nonprofits in that world, that are that they materially awarded them dollars. So I don't think it limits them. It's a good bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coran. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Kupec, good bill. You know, I sit on the Legislative Audit Commission with Senators Barr and Senator Coran. We did hear this audit, very, very troubling. We've also seen legislators involved in writing bills that extend money to people that they know. And there is certainly the potential for them to eventually be employed there as well. So I appreciate the angle. I think it's a little bit weak on the terms, though, so I've got a couple of amendments, Senator Kupec, if you would entertain them. I guess I'll offer them and see what your response is. The first one is to take the years that the legislature may not accept employment with the employer and take it from 12 months to 5 years. And so we would have to amend line 1.10, line 2.23, line 2.9, and line 3.1, and council, maybe there's other lines if I have missed them. Or maybe I can throw them in, maybe I can throw it in one amendment, Mr. Chair. The second part of the amendment would, and I like the penalty for violation that you have on page 3 of the bill. I think that's also an excellent angle. I would like to extend, though, the amount where an employer who violates this section is precluded from receiving a state grant for a period of 12 months, and strike 12 months and insert 10 years. And that would be my amendment, Mr. Chair.
So one amendment, two parts. The 5 years for employment, and then the second part was contracting.
10 years for the violation.
10 years for the 10 years for the violation. Senator Kupec, any response to the amendment from Senator Drazkowski?
So Senator Drazkowski and Mr. Chair, just to make it clear, so we're extending the 5 years on the legislators. Are we also extending it to 5 years on the employees?
Senator Drazkowski.
10 years on the employer, Senator Kupec.
Right, 10 years on the employer, but on the, when the other part, when you were adding it, I think you said at the beginning, 5 years, was that just on elected officials, or was that also for state employees?
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your clarity on that, Senator Kupec, because I didn't read that part on 2.9. So I circled and do intend to take 12 months to 5 years also on the employee section on page 2, Mr. Chair. So the parts with employment from either a legislator or former state employees would be 5 years, and the employer part on page 3 would be 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Ms. James.
Madam Chair and members, Senator Drazkowski's proposal is on page 1, line 10, delete 12 months and insert 5 years. On page 2, line 9, delete 12 months and insert 5 years. On page 2, line 23, delete 12 months and insert 5 years. On page 3.2, delete 12 months and insert 5 years. And then on line 3.7, delete 12 months and insert 10 years.
Okay, thank you, Ms. James, for the clarity there. Senator Drazkowski, any additional pieces?
No, that represents the amendment, Mr. Chair, and I'd encourage discussion and encourage your support. I think 12 months is way too short. I think we need to make it something that is a barrier to fraud. And 12 months is a small barrier to fraud, but the public can't accept legislators and employees of the state doing what happened with the Behavioral Health Administration. And we can't be giving grants to employers who violate this as well. Part of me, Senator Kupec and members, would like to see many of these be forever, but I think 5 and 10 years is reasonable.
Okay. Senator Kupec, this is your bill. I would like to hear what your thoughts are.
Mr. Chair.
Sure, and thank you, Senator Drazkowski, because I share those same sentiments, and I think I am certainly fine with the 5 years on elected officials. I am maybe hesitant on the 5 years on state employees, just because I'm not quite sure how that, in my mind, just trying to figure out how that plays out, because I can't see if, people who they administered grants, and that's kind of the qualified area. I don't know what that time frame exactly is. I mean, if you left and you went, oh, I got a job as a consultant, you left to start a consultant business, and then you happen to pick up somebody in the past. I could see where 12 months is too short, but is 5 years too long, I guess would be the question. And then I'm certainly open to the 10-year idea, and again, I think maybe the penalty for violation 12 months might be too short. I'm not just sure what some of the ramifications are for 10 years, but I'm comfortable with the 5 on legislators, electeds. I'm pretty good, I think, with the 10 on on subdivision 3, and then it's just maybe the state employee part that I'm not sure how 5 is, and I would be curious to hear what other members' thoughts are on that, as this has come up, so I like a discussion.
Thank you, Senator Kupec. Senator Coran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think Senator Drazkowski, I like the additional element of the nonprofit themselves. So create the disincentives on both sides of that transaction or that opportunity. I don't know if 10 years is the number, but I think we got a couple stops left here that we can figure that out. But I do like to discourage one, the job offer, and 2, the person that would be willing to accept it and have a consequence. So, because we're talking about those that have actual real material direct relationships of how they've been funded. And we've had so many people that we still have to come up with the solution that the friends and family plan for the direct appropriations. This doesn't cover that. And it's kind of hidden under the guise that this is a competitive grant process with it all occupied by friends and family and in the industry. So I like it. We can argue about or debate about the time, but I don't think 10 years would be too long from a business perspective to set a clear expectation that no legislator, or not a legislator and or anybody participating in that process, that they should have a consequence if they break that process. And in 10 years, they'd have to go out and figure out a way to fund their own activities outside of us. So I like it. I think it's worthy of consideration, and maybe we can refine the periods as the time moves on, or as the bill moves on. Thank you.
Senator Barr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I promise to be brief, but I would encourage members of the committee to go ahead and accept the amendment. The author seems to be open to it, and you have a couple more committee stops. If it turns out that 10 is just a little too much and 7.5 seems a little better, we got a couple more committee stops to adjust that back down. And let's go over a little extra onerous here and dial down if we need to at the next committee.
Yeah, so Senator Kupec, thank you for bringing this bill. I'm supportive of it. I think, so the amendment that we're discussing Senator Drazkowski's amendment, I'm just unsure about the length. I understand the increase for it, but I just don't want the state to get sued, or there's going to be a lawsuit because of the 5 years, 10 years, maybe it's more than that. And I'm not sure that I think a different committee would be better suited in addressing that. But if Senator Kupec is okay to put it on his bill, I think that'd be okay. But Senator Kupec, to your bill.
Sure. Thank you, members, for the thoughtful discussion on this. And as long as if we take this and put it on and then have discussion and, we find out maybe there is, as Senator Barr said, maybe it's 7.5, that there's some magic number that is better. If we're willing to just adjust to that, then I am happy to take this amendment and put it on here today. Thank you. Thanks for a really good discussion on this.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just thank you, Senator Kupec. I just like to remind members, this only applies to one employer. So if you're a state employee or a legislator, it applies to one employer in the world, and that's it. So it's not as if we're denying them employment in a job category or anything like that, Mr. Chair. So I think this is very reasonable, and thank you, Senator Kupec.
Certainly. Would you like to make a motion, Senator Drazkowski?
I think we got to pass the amendment yet, Mr. Chair.
You made the motion to adopt this amendment?
Senator Drazkowski moves to adopt the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Any other questions or comments to the bill? We will be sending it to labor. Senator Drazkowski.
Mr. Chair, I move that Senate File 4640 be recommended to pass and referred to Labor Committee?
Yep.
To Labor.
Certainly. Senator Drazkowski moves.
As amended, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator Drazkowski moves Senate File 4640 as amended to be recommended to pass and referred to Labor. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion passes, and Senate File 4640 as amended is recommended to pass and referred to Labor. Thank you, Senator Kupec, for the bill.
Thank you, members. Thanks for a great discussion.
Yes, and then next up we have Senator Pa with Senate File. Sorry, we're kind of jumping back and forth on the agenda here, but Senate File 4736. And then Senator Duckworth will be following this bill presentation. Senator Pod, to your bill, now it looks like you have an amendment.
I do. Thank you, Chair. I do have an amendment. Is the A13, if I can get that moved
Certainly.
first.
Senator Gustafson moves the A13 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Senator Pa.
Thank you, Chair Zhang and members, for allowing me to present this bill, which is SF 4736. The bill is really it's an establishment of a week of observance for Hmong American heritage. The Hmong people, as you know, are a unique people because they do not have a country of their own. So they do not have a national government or a formal system to preserve their language, their culture, or their history. That responsibility has always fallen on the people, and therefore, as Hmong Americans, has fallen on our Hmong Americans, especially the ones here in Minnesota. For generations, preservation has lived through our elders, through our stories, through our traditions, and it's been passed down from one generation to another. Without intentional preservation and observance, cultures can disappear. There was a time when it was actually believed that this small little ethnic group called the Hmong people was going to disappear over time. Not by vanishing all at once, but slowly over time, because what makes a people special and unique is their language, their tradition, and their identity. And it was thought that that would be lost. But today in Minnesota, it is thriving. The Hmong people are thriving here. And it's only because Minnesota embraces diversity of all cultures, embraces people from all corners of the world. This state has chosen to see the richness of cultures and it's as something not to erase, as something to embrace as part of the fabric of Minnesota. And this bill ensures that a people like the Hmong without a country are not without value, and that their history has a place, and that their story has a home here in Minnesota. So, Chair, I do have two testifiers with me today.
Certainly, thank you. The first testifier, Pang Yang, please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Yashong, Chair and members of the committee, my name is Pang Yang, Executive Director of Minnesota Zheja, whose mission is to empower the Hmong community by nurturing the Hmong language, healing through the arts and wellness, and education across generations. I'm here to urge you to support Senate File 4736. As a graduate of St. Paul Public Schools, I never saw Hmong history taught in the classroom. Years later, when I returned as a teacher, I hoped things had changed. But no history textbooks still told a single story, with no mention of the Hmong experience. And yet, in a state that is home to one of the largest urban Hmong population in the country, we are still far from calling Hmong, Minnesota, a true home, one where Hmong history, heritage, and resilience are fully recognized and honored. When I was finally able to share my family's story of the Secret War, a student walked out and refused to listen. That moment had stayed with me because absence sends a message. It tells students their stories don't matter, and it denies others the chance to build understanding and empathy. When students learn inclusive history, research shows they build empathy, stronger relationships, and a deeper sense of connection to one another. For Hmong students, this is about belonging, knowing that Minnesota is home not just to where we live, but in what we learn. Minnesota prides itself on embracing diversity, and yet a significant part of our community remains invisible in what we teach. Hmong American Heritage Week can fill that gap. Hmong are an ethnic group whose history has often been displaced, overlooked, and at risk of being erased. But our roots can't be erased. We are here, woven into Minnesota's Bandao story cloth. Senate File 4736 means telling a fuller, more honest story of who we are, celebrating the resilience and contributions of the Hmong in Minnesota. In addition, every Minnesotan deserves to learn more about the refugee communities who are their neighbors like the Hmong and celebrate along with them. Because when we honor every story, we strengthen all of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Dr. Ka Yang. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Chair and members of the committee, I arrived in the United States as a refugee of the Secret War, carrying a language my classrooms did not recognize. My name is Dr. Ka Xiong. I am a Hmong Minnesotan, an educator of 30 years, a scholar of Hmong language laws, and an author of Hmong children's books. While I held on to my language, many others did not. My own brother lost his Hmong language completely. Today, he can only communicate with their mother through a translator. What should be simple conversations, advice, memories, love, are filtered through a third voice. This is more than language loss. It is severed relationship. My research shows that this loss is accelerating. What typically takes 3 generations is happening in less than 1 in many Hmong families. While our schools prioritize English, we also have an opportunity to value bilingualism as an intellectual asset. Research consistently shows that when children see their language and culture valued, they develop stronger identity, well-being, and academic engagement. Senate File 4736 is a vital step because visibility leads to validation, and validation helps preserve language and identity. By establishing Hmong American Heritage Week, we give Hmong children a reason to feel pride in who they are and remain connected to their families. This legislation benefits all Minnesotans by fostering understanding, unity, and respect across cultures. It strengthens the cultural richness of our state and builds a more inclusive future for everyone. For these reasons, I strongly urge your support of Senate File 4736, so no child loses the ability to speak to their family in their own language. Wachao.
Thank you. For the testimony, members, any questions or comments? Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Paugh, I like your approach with this. There's no mandates in here. It's encourage, encourage, encourage. And with the amendment, I really appreciated you. You're both, you have Hmong heritage, but you're Americans. And I appreciate the way you went about putting the bill together. So thank you.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Senator Paugh, for bringing this legislation forward. I'm also very supportive. In the retiring room, me and Senator Zhang always have conversations about our different cultures and things like that. And I had a question for you. Very briefly, can you explain to us the difference between white Hmong and green Hmong?
Senator Fateh.
Senator Paugh, you take that one.
Our Hmong people have many dialects, or I should say a few dialects. And Hmong Dao is a different dialect, but it's also from a different region of Laos, up in the mountains. And the Hmong Lang or Hmong Chua is also a different dialect from a different region, but we're all still Hmong. I speak both, actually, so.
Can I add to that, that 90% of the language is the same, but it's just that small difference, so, yeah.
All right, Senator Paugh, any final words?
I just want to say thank you, Senator Barr, for your comments. This is Hmong American, and we chose May 23rd as kind of the ending, May 14th as the beginning and May 23rd as the ending of that week, because May 14th was the day where the Hmong people, because of after the Vietnam War, they had to escape Laos for persecution. And that was the day when mass amounts of Hmong people escaped out of the country they known. May 23rd was the day that President Gerald Ford signed into law at that time in May 23rd, 1975, the bill that would resettle refugees into America and open up the doors and welcome these refugees into the U.S. And so this is our Hmong American history, which is our American history. That was how we ended up here in America. And every day when we teach our children about our history, we talk about the turning points in which made us Americans. So I want to just say thank you to you, Chair Zhang, also for being author on this, to all the members for your support in this, because this really is about investing in a shared future, one in which the community sees itself reflected, and that there's intentional space for us to learn about that history, the broader part of our American history. And to those who are Hmong Minnesotans here, there's almost 100,000 Hmong Minnesotans here that call Minnesota home. This is something that deeply matters to them. Even though it may seem like it's just an observance week, it's something very deeply important. So thank you all so much for supporting this bill, and I look forward to passing it this year.
Seeing no further discussion, Senate File 4736 is laid over for possible inclusion. Next up, we have Senator Duckworth with Senate File, Senate File 4736 is laid over. Senate File 4736, as amended, is laid over for possible inclusion. Senator Duckworth, welcome to the State and Local Government Committee. Senate File 4515, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First and foremost, I appreciate your flexibility and the help of your very capable and awesome CA. Thank you for letting me be here today. I do have an author's amendment to A1. If we could kindly get that added to the bill, please.
All right, Senator Barr moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I promise to be brief. And before I begin, just so I don't catch you off guard, I do want to let you know that I spoke to Senator Klein, Chair of the Commerce Committee. He is 100% supportive of this bill being moved to general orders from here. So I'll leave that up to you for consideration as we get toward the end of the bill hearing. But this would essentially allow for the price of meat raffle tickets to be increased so that they can more accurately reflect some of the costs of prizes that folks are buying tickets to win. It's a very popular bill. I guess it's caught the attention of some folks out there. So needless to say, I think it's pretty widely supported, and folks would like to see it pass and get a little bit more flexibility when it comes to the meat raffles that are taking place all across the great state of Minnesota. That's all I've got, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. And looks like we have a testifier, Rachel Jenner.
Actually, due to the flexible schedule today, she's not able to join us, so I apologize for that miscommunication.
All right, certainly, thank you for that. Members, any questions or comments to the bill? Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Duckworth, for recognizing that a prize just doesn't go as far as it used to, and we're adjusting for inflation. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly, any other member questions or comments? Senator Coran.
Yeah, and thank you, Senator Duckworth. And I think to be clear for everybody listening, it only sets the ceiling of the price. The market will dictate the actual price for every raffle out there in every bar and restaurant. But it's provided, it's been one of the most positive activities to raise money as well as drive business to many of our restaurants and bars throughout all of Minnesota. So thank you.
And members, the amendment is being passed out right now. Any other questions or comments? The final word, Senator Duckworth.
Yeah. None, Mr. Chair. I won't push my luck. Thank you. But just a reminder, obviously your decision, but would love to see it move to general orders if possible. It's teed up in the House as well.
All right. Certainly, you got any of your colleagues willing to make that motion? Senator Barr.
Mr. Chair, I move that, get my right file number here, Senate File 4515 as amended be moved to general orders. Recommend to pass and move to general orders.
All right, Senator Barr. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a logistical piece. I'm being told that it will go to Commerce, but it will make its way there eventually. So,
adjust the motion then. Recommend Senate File 4515 as amended be recommended to pass and move to Commerce.
Yep, and Senator Barr moves Senate File 4515 as amended to be recommended pass and referred to Commerce. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 4515 as amended is recommended to pass and refer to Commerce. Thank you, Senator Duckworth. And you have one more bill, Senate File 2061.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much. This bill actually might look familiar to many folks in the room. It's actually something that we voted upon on the Senate floor a few sessions ago. It was unanimously added to a housing bill that just unfortunately didn't cross the finish line that session. What this bill would allow for is, in addition to the U.S. flag, no restrictions on the POW MIA flag, the flag of any branch of U.S. Armed Forces, the Blue Star Service flag, or Gold Star Service flag to be flown on somebody's property. So sometimes there are HOA bylaws, et cetera, that prohibit certain things from being done on a property. This would simply say when it comes to those flags, they're so meaningful to all of us that you can't place any restrictions on somebody's ability to fly those flags on their property. That's all it is, Mr. Chair. Again, a widely supported bill that's also teed up for the House floor this session as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Duckworth. Members, any questions or comments to this bill? With that, seeing no further discussion, Senator Coran moves that Senate File 2061 is to be recommended to pass and to be placed on general orders. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 2061 is recommended to pass and placed on general orders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth.
Appreciate it.
And then next up, we have Senator Weber, Senate File 4749. Senator Weber, thank you for joining us today. Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have the A4 amendment for this bill. This has the second stop. I had an author's amendment in the first committee stop, so if you wish me to go over this amendment, I certainly will.
Okay, no problem. Is it we don't have the amendment with us yet? Is it being sent over? Okay, sorry, as we're digging up, would you like to go go through your bill?
Thank you. The bill itself, Senate File 4749, establishes a task force on housing, taxes, and fees. Basically, we spend significant time in this Capitol talking about the cost of housing, and today we also recognize there's a shortage of housing and there is a high cost of housing. And while we oftentimes consider and talk about the hard costs, such as lumber, labor, land, we have less information on the soft costs, the permitting costs, the amount of exactions from different units of government for a development to occur. And so basically what this bill does is establishes a task force made up of 16 members from a variety of positions, including members of the legislature, including members of different state agencies and those groups that are involved in housing, and gives them a timeline with a sunset on this committee to basically go ahead and research these costs to help us understand the costs across the state of Minnesota. It's one of those things, I don't expect them to have a listing of every city, of every county that we have in the state of Minnesota. But as you go about from southwest to southeast to metro, at least provide some general parameters about what these costs are and what is raising the costs of our individual lots. And so the purpose here is for this task force is to help fill the vacuum with the lack of lack of knowledge that we have regarding this particular issue. And as it relates to the amendment that, the A4 amendment, basically, Mr. Chair and members, it concerns certain wording changes that members of the Housing Committee recommended, make sure that the phrasing is the same in the different areas, and And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stop and open it up for any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. And the amendment is being passed out right now, getting printed right now. I don't know if members would like to move forward with questions. Senator Barr.
Sure, I'll start, Mr. Chair. Senator Weber, thank you for the bill. I like the task force sunset at the end, subdivision 8. You've given them a reasonable but truncated timeline to send their report, and you have included pretty much everybody in here, but not overbearing that it can't function. You've got minority, majority, you've got housing, you've got the governor, you've got tribes, nonprofits. You've included some of everybody, so you should get a very good report out of this. And I especially like subdivision 6. I think you know what that one is, right? Yeah, okay. I really like that. It encourages them get their work done, because they have better things to do, or other things to do with their time. And I think we will actually glean some usable information out of this report in the end, just exactly. It'll dial into a lot of why our housing is, you can look around. We all have anecdotal stories about it costs this much to build this many square foot in this town or this state, and we'll be able to have real hard data that we can start comparing, not just like Minneapolis to the suburb or to Worthington, but we'll also be able to use that data and comparing state to state and start dialing in of why we can't build a starter home in this state anymore. So thank you for the bill.
Thank you, Senator Barr. Any members, any other questions? Senator Coran?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Weber, I think we all battle more commissions, more task forces. But I think more than anything, the education piece of it, but every element that goes in, we're talking about a pretty broad spectrum, right? We've added more costs to that, just building a home, which cumulative value is right in the total cost of living and operating, just in home ownership. But do you see this going through, because actually, Department of Labor and Industry, they've had the greatest impact on building a home from the wage theft laws. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the rights and responsibilities of a contractor to now be responsible for the business acumen of not the product of their subs, but the business acumen in compliance with all other administration or business laws in the state or the country. It's a myriad of legislative inputs that don't exist in most other states. Do you envision this task force being able to highlight every single element and to scour from the regulatory environment to the composition, how we calculate tax, your role, your share in tax, mandated infrastructure? I see some of that listed, right? Parks and those things in every development. We sat in, was it 7 years ago, I think we had a workforce that operated all summer on naturally occurring affordable housing. We sat in Lake Elmo, better known as North Woodbury, and walked through $100,000 in costs that didn't add any value to, and that was to every single property. From the regulatory perspective, window clips to mandatory tree fees, mandatory park fees, in addition to building a park. Do you see this taking the most comprehensive view of every one of those elements that comprise building a house in Minnesota, and then the comparative analysis of why is it $80,000 to $150,000 cheaper to build it in a neighboring state like Wisconsin, who isn't a low-cost state, by the way. They're just a hell of a lot lower than we are. Do you anticipate this new commission going through every element of what comprises that total cost of ownership, including property taxes?
Senator Weber?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Coran. I anticipate that this task force is going to bring those issues forward. Are they going to have the time to do an in-depth analysis of every element? Because as you mentioned, the myriad of rules and requirements that are out there is substantial. And I don't know that they'll have the time to actually go ahead and come up with a solution for each of those particular issues. But I think what the legislature needs And I can say this because, quite frankly, I'm not going to be here. What the legislature needs is the basic information to say, hey, these are the problems that we have created over the years. And then it will allow the respective committees that deal with those particular issues to take that information and say, okay, how do we solve the problem?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Coran.
And thank you, Senator Weber, because I do believe even inventorying, right, the task of just inventorying the cost elements of home ownership, build it from the construction of it to ownership to the correlation of the additional cause of the holistic property tax aspect of it. That's a big list. Going to take many people to figure that out. But as you mentioned, Senator Weber, you also won't be here next year. And I don't know if for the public and members, but they all have a permanent smile on their faces when they announce on their way out. And so we appreciate yours, Mr. Weber. Thank you.
All right, and maybe Senator Weber, maybe council can orally read out the amendment. It's not that detailed or super long. Ms. James?
Mr. Chair and members, the amendment, first of all, I forgot to send it to Michaela, so that's why you don't have it. But also, I'm noticing that the page and lines on it are probably from an earlier version, but I think we can still do it with 1 second for me to update the page and lines. Okay. So on page 2, line 9, after "and," insert "related." On page 2, line 10, after the first occurrence of fees and that comma after the first fees, insert comma "extractions," comma. Page 2, line 12, after final market, insert net cost. And on page 2, line 13, delete everything before the semicolon. And then on page 2, line 14, delete evaluate and insert analyze.
All right, Senator Weber, thank you for the bill. Senator Barr.
Mr. Chair, did we move the amendment?
Not yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
when it gets time for that. I did have one suggestion that you please consider. Are we going to general orders with this, or is it going, where's this going?
This one is going to taxes.
Taxes.
Yeah.
Oh, when it gets to one of the committees you sit on, if you could consider adding a line to one of your, whether it's the Builders Association or the Multi-Housing Association or one of the governor's people, that they be licensed in multiple states, not just Minnesota, so you can get some input, somebody with some better input from outstate, somebody with that kind of, just a suggestion when you move to taxes, Senator Weber.
Senator Weber.
Mr. Chair, Senator Barr, thank you. I think that's a good suggestion.
All right, thank you, Senator Barr.
Could I move the A4?
The oral.
The oral amendment, okay, yep. Can I move the oral amendment to Senate File 4749, please?
All right, Senator Barr moves the oral amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Any other questions or comments to the bill? Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Weber, we've had some pretty extensive conversations over the years about aesthetic mandates and building material use and their impact on the cost of housing. Would you be amenable to this task force looking at that as well?
Senator Weber.
Mr. Chair and Senator McQuaid, I believe that those type of things are indeed under the purview of this task force. All the exactions that different taxing authorities or governing authorities place on the development.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Weber.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, with that, Seeing no further discussion, Senator Matthews moves Senate File 4749 to be recommended to pass and refer to taxes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 4749 is recommended to pass and refer to taxes.
Mr. Chair, members.
Thank you. Yeah. And then next up, we have Senator Clark, Senate File 3959, our last bill before we take the lunch break. Senator Clark, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee. Committee, I bring you Senate File 3959, which makes targeted practical updates to strengthen Minnesota's address confidentiality program, which is called Safe at Home. Safe at Home better protects participants who rely on, and so the changes better protect participants who rely on the services for their safety. To make sure that we're all grounded for the public on what Safe at Home is, it helps people who fear for their safety, often folks who are survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking, but also those with professional safety concerns, keep their real address confidential. Participants are given a P.O. box to use as their legal address, which must be accepted by public and private entities so they don't have to disclose where they live. The program forwards participants first-class mail and accepts service of process on their behalf while securely protecting their actual address. So just a quick story of where this bill has been. So we started out in judiciary and public safety, moved on to transportation, and now we're here today. We're primarily in your jurisdiction is sections 1, 2, 5, and 6, though you could probably argue the whole thing is yours. It's co-authored in the other body by Representative Nash, who, a constituent of his, shares a story of how these changes will benefit her. And that's what this does. It clarifies gap in current law, defining who may act as a guardian when enrolling a minor and ensuring emancipated minors can apply independently. It also codifies staff practice of requiring documentation of guardianship to promote consistency and accountability. This bill strengthens protection around disclosure of a participant's physical address by requiring written judicial findings, notifying the Office of the Secretary of State when such findings are made, and allowing time for review or intervention before the disclosure takes effect. It also enhances penalties for harmful disclosures, adds anti-discrimination protections for participants, and improves state agency coordination by requiring agencies to designate a safe at-home point of contact. Finally, it reduces barriers for participants by allowing Safe at Home cards to be used as a proof of residency for driver's license and real IDs, and it requires judicial training to reinforce the seriousness of these protections. These are straightforward updates that ensure that the program remains clear, consistent, and effective for those who depend on it. And I have staff from the Secretary of State's office with me to answer questions.
Thank you, Senator Clark. And would the testifier like to add anything else? All right. Thank you for that. Members, any questions or comments to the bill? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the bill, Senator Clark. I really have a great appreciation for this program. It was actually developed in my tenure when I came here. I don't remember what year it was, but it was a long time ago. And it's still going. The one concern I have is that it gets bigger than it needs to be. The concern that I have is that it needs to maintain its integrity in covering the people that it needs to cover. And the one question that just popped into my head is, you know, I think about the area of stalking and some other things. Do we have any guardrails, or have you thought about, or has the Secretary of State thought about, you have people, is there people who have mental health issues who may think they're being stalked and aren't really being stalked? I don't know how to express it any better than that. Are there any elements of discussion happening around that to make certain that we don't suddenly see a growth in this area, maybe that it doesn't need to grow? My concern is that it gets too big and loses its integrity.
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Zhang. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. It's good caution and good clarity, and part of why it was one part of the Public Safety, Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, because that is a piece where we do have, understanding and definition of most of these pieces that you've described. The additional piece of having, judicial review in this and coordination will help ensure that we are having a consistency of application. I think I'll also turn to the Secretary of State's office for a bit more elucidation.
Hello, welcome to the State Local Government Committee. You may proceed.
Thank you, Senator Zhang and Senator Drazkowski. Nicole Freeman from the Office of the Secretary of State. Senator Drazkowski, I'll just point you to, we're not amending this section of statute, but on lines 2.21 through 2.23, it does say where the definition of harassment and stalking would be coming from, in other places in statute. And I'll just note too that as part of the process of becoming a participant in Safe at Home, participants are required to meet with application assistants. So those are folks that are walking through all areas of safety planning with those individuals to determine whether or not, to help the potential participant determine if becoming a participant and undergoing, sort of the life changes that are needed in order to participate in the program are necessary and are the right fit for them. So I think that while the program does continue to grow each year, I don't think that we're at a place where we're concerned that it's being improperly used by folks.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Just one follow-up then. So when in your office's interviews with people as they're entering the program, as you talked about the interviews, have you ran across any applicants that you questioned whether they truly had stalking or some of the other elements that are qualifications that go into the Safe at Home program, that they weren't real? Or were they always real? Or they're probably not in a position to make that judgment. I don't know. But if something sticks out at you, I would think that you might notice. I'd be interested in your comments.
Ms. Freeman.
Thank you, Chair Zhang and Senator. I unfortunately can't speak to what might happen in those staff interactions. I know that, like I said, there is an extensive process that folks go through as they are having those conversations with application assistants. Those application assistants are folks that are outside of our office. They're in all 87 counties, and so those are the folks that are having those conversations. And I think if they're meeting the requirements of, if they're an eligible person and if they're meeting the other requirements, they would be allowed into the system. I'd be happy to follow up with you offline, though. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Members, any other questions or comments? Final word, Senator Clark.
Thank you, committee. And as Senator Drazkowski noted, this is an important program that has that really makes sure that we are doing what the title of this is, helping people stay safe at home. So thank you for your support.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Senator Clark. And with that, Senator May Quaid moves that Senate File 3959 to be recommended to pass and refer to general orders. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 3959 is recommended to pass and referred to general orders. Thank you, Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair.
And with that, members, we will take a brief recess until 1 p.m. and we will be taking up Senate File 3685. And with that, we are in recess.